Literally right when I started filming this, the garbage truck rolls up. Why is it every time? I just saw an entire mattress of like a brand new mattress go in the trash. I'm just gonna wait till he's done. Okay, truck is gone. I genuinely am just like buffooned at the fact that it is the middle of June already. I know everybody says this, but I truly do not know where this year has gone. I feel like I'm in a weird sci-fi book where the time is literally speeding up as I'm getting older. Like an hour is no longer an hour. An hour is like 10 minutes, and that's just how it feels. So with it being June and officially the middle of the year, that calls for a mid-year book tag. I think this is the third time I'm doing this video now. If I'm not mistaken, I think this was the actual first YouTube video I ever did on this channel, and that feels like so long ago, but not long ago at all. It's very confusing. Like, I've already been on YouTube. Okay, yeah, it's been almost 2 years since I've been on YouTube. August 16th, 2022 is when I started doing booktube. That is so crazy. So yeah, this is my third time doing this video. I'm just gonna do like some stats really quick because I'm genuinely curious. Like, I haven't even really looked at my stats for this year yet. I just know that they're not the greatest. So I've read 23 books out of 50 is my 2024 goal. My 2024 goal, I believe, was at 65 or 70 books. I can't remember what I said it at the beginning of the year. But then I had like a weird epiphany where I was like, you know what, it's not the quantity, it's the quality. So I wanted to kind of like slow down my reading and just really like enjoy myself, because last year I felt like I put a lot of pressure on myself to read like a certain amount of books, and this year I just don't really want to do that. I just want to have fun with it. So last year I think I read 83 books, and this year my goal is 50, but I know I'm going to surpass that. So mentally my goal is like 65, but so far I've read 23. If I can math correctly, 9 of them are fantasies, 1 is dystopian, 1 is magical realism, 1 is sci-fi, 1 is fiction, 7 are mystery thrillers, and 3 are romances. I know that dystopian and magical realism technically fall under the fantasy like category, but the books that I read, I just feel like they're kind of set apart from like your general fantasy, so I just wanted to put them in their own category. So this has definitely been a very fantasy heavy year, which I'm not mad about, because last year I feel like since I started reading for fun again as an adult, I've been primarily reading thrillers. But we all know I'm in a weird thriller funk right now. So I've been exploring other genres, which I really wanted to do last year. I couldn't get into like fantasies and rom-coms as much as I could like mysteries and thrillers, but this year it's like the opposite. I forgot to grab the books that I was talking about. I was going to share like my full fun stats from Storygraph, but honestly, I don't know what is going on with Storygraph, but I tried to import my Goodreads like stuff into Storygraph and it didn't like fully upload. So it's missing a lot of information that I just don't really care to like physically put in. So we're not gonna do that. But we are just going to jump right into the questions, which the first one is, what is the best book that I have read this year? And so I have 2 for this, and that is The Reappearance of Rachel Price and The Unmaking of June Farrow, because these were both 5-star reads. This one follows our main character who, her mom went missing, like just mysteriously vanished when she was a baby. And so now that she's like grown up and a teenager, the story of her mom's disappearance is still very like prevalent in the town. And it's like one of the biggest mysteries that like has happened in the last decade. So there's a Netflix documentary crew that wants to come and do like a docuseries on her family. And in the middle of that docuseries, in the filming of the docuseries, her mother reappears. So we're pretty much just following like the aftermath of that. And our main character is like very untrusting of her mother. Like, she doesn't really understand like where have you been? I don't feel like she's telling the truth. Like, there's definitely some secrets, some weird vibes going on around the house. So the rest of the story is like just unraveling what the heck has happened over the last like however many years that she was missing. And it's honestly crazy. Like, I just had such a good time with it. It hit a few slow parts, but for the most part, like, I was never bored with it, and I genuinely loved the ending. This book was mysterious, fast-paced, a little bit thrilling. Like, it was everything that I love in like a normal thriller, but it also, like, towards the end, it had a lot more emotion in it, and it just, like, I can't really say anything without spoiling things, but it just kind of like, hit me a little bit. And then The Unmaking of June Farrow, this is about our main character, June Farrow, and her family is like cursed with going mad. Like all the women in her family go mad. And also her mother mysteriously disappeared as well when she was younger. And so throughout this book, you're kind of following June as she starts to go mad as well. They start to see this like mysterious red door that just kind of like pops up out of nowhere. And so one day she decides, you know what? I'm just gonna go through this door and see what happens. So we're following her like going through this door. There's a little bit of like murder mystery that we are trying to figure out. It's very magical and whimsical. It's emotional. It's mysterious. Like it was kind of genre bending, honestly, in a way that I just like super enjoyed. So those are my top 2 books of 2024 so far. Best sequel I've read this year. I'm pretty sure I've only read one sequel, and that is the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies sequel. I don't know. I think it's just called like the Emily Wilde sequel. I don't know. But Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. First of all, these books are just absolutely beautiful. These are the covers. This one is the Barnes & Noble exclusive, and this one is actually the UK edition, which somehow I found at Half Price Books. My jaw was on the floor when I saw this book. But these are just extremely cozy fantasy, honestly kind of like rom-com-y type of books. If you liked the Spiderwick Chronicles growing up, and if you like Holly Black's kind of like writing in worlds, then I feel like you would really enjoy these books because they're just, it's like that, but more like cozy and funny. It follows our main character, Emily Wilde, and her like academic partner slash somewhat kind of rival. Like, I don't really know how to explain him in the beginning, but it kind of follows mostly Emily Wilde, but it's just like them together as well. She is a professor, I believe, and she's just like a big academic person. So she is writing an encyclopedia of fairies and a map of the Otherlands. The banter between Emily Wilde and Wendell in these books is just, I loved it so much. It was so funny. It was so cute. I love his character. I love her character. It is kind of like a Grumpy Sunshine reverse. So she's kind of like the grumpy, like to herself type of person, and he's like the happy-go-lucky, like fun type of guy. So their dynamic was just so fun. And this world is so magical. The Spiderwick Chronicles was true, like my childhood. It was my favorite thing growing up. So this just gave me that same feeling, I guess, and that's just like why I loved it so much. The plots themselves were a little bit slow. Like honestly, this one, like nothing super interesting happens. It was more just like vibes, and but I had a really good time with it. This one though, it definitely, like the plot definitely picks up in this book. I think I rated both of these like a 4.5 or a 4.75. They weren't quite 5 stars because of the plot, but they are some of my favorite books. So the next question is a new release that I haven't read but want to. I have quite a few, but one that comes to mind immediately is The Housemaid 3, which is The Housemaid is Watching. This is technically a 5-star series for me because the first book I gave 5 stars, and then the second book I think I gave like a 4.5. And this book, I can't remember, is it Millie? I think Millie is the main character, but it follows her, and she, in the first book at least, she's just in like a really bad spot. She's out of a job. I think she's living in her car, and then one day she gets a housemaid job from this more like wealthy family, but things start to go wrong very quickly. The wife is like insane, and she just does all these super weird things, and the husband is like super sweet and seems very like caring towards his wife, because his wife seems very like mentally unstable, I guess is how I would describe it. And yeah, just weird things start to happen, and Millie is living in the house and her room locks from the outside. So there's just like some sketchy things in this house. I can't really say anything more than that without spoiling it, but I loved this series so much, and I'm just so excited to read the third book whenever I do feel not icky about reading thrillers, which I hope is soon because I really want to read this book. Oh, another new release that I haven't read but want to is Heartless Hunter. This one, I generally don't read books that have like witches in them because I mean that's just like a personal thing. But if it's not like weird crafty type of like witchy things, if it's like Harry Potter type witchy things, then like that's fine for me. So I'm a little bit hesitant, but I've been hearing a lot of really good things about it. So I'm very intrigued in it, and I would love to go into that one, but I don't really know what it's about, to be honest. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this one follows our main character who is a witch, and there's like witch hunters, and so she hunts the witch hunters. to save like her, I wanted to say like species, but that is not the right word, but like her people. And then there's like a love interest who I think is a witch hunter, so it's just like very I don't know, I don't really know what this is about besides those points, but it sounds fun. It sounds intriguing for sure, so definitely looking forward to that one. Next question is the most anticipated release for the second half of 2024. I have a couple. The first one is The Grandest Game. This is the newest series from Jennifer Lynn Barnes that follows the same, not the same characters, but kind of the same idea as the Inheritance games, or just like, it's like what happened after the Inheritance games, but I'm pretty sure you have to read the Inheritance games before you read this one in order for it to like really make sense and for you to have like the best experience, like reading experience. I don't really know what to expect, honestly, from her new series. I am a Jennifer Lynn Barnes stan. I love her, but The Final Gambit and The Brothers Hawthorne were both big letdowns for me, which sucked because I really wanted to like love those books, but I just didn't nearly as much as I thought I would. So I'm a little bit hesitant, honestly, with her new writing. So very interested to see how that goes. My next one is The Lost Story. I think this is by Meg Schaefer. And again, don't super know what this is about, but I do know that it's for fans of like the Chronicles of Narnia because it has a similar idea of there's like some magical passageway and there's some like adventure and a whole different like magical world, and there's something that we're either trying to find or something that we're trying to fix, and that's all I really know. But it sounds so fun, and I love the Chronicles of Narnia so much. It's actually funny that I'm talking about this right now because I just went to my mom's house yesterday and I grabbed my childhood Narnia series. I have literally had these books since I was like 7 years old, so they are just very nostalgic for me, and I'm really excited to see how this, I guess I would call it like a reimagining in a way, is. I've been wanting to read a lot more magical realism, and I think that that's kind of what this is. It might be like fantasy magical realism type of thing, but I'm definitely in a bigger like magical realism mood. So the next question is my biggest disappointment for this year so far, and that's, I have two, I think, for this. Oh, I have three for this one. So the first one is actually Fourth Wing. This book I could not take seriously. I just felt like it was so dramatic and kind of like overdone, and this is like just strictly my personal opinion. I know that so many people love this book, so I'm not like saying that you're wrong. Like, everybody has their own reading experience, but for me personally, this, like, I just couldn't take it seriously. It was too much for me, and I felt like the characters were kind of annoying, and I did not understand the chemistry between Violet and Xaden, I think is his name. I feel like it just went from 0 to 100 so quick, and that just really threw me off. And I feel like the entire book just revolved around the danger of the school. Like, I didn't really understand like anything besides you could die at any minute at this school, and like that just got very old very quickly. So I decided not to continue the series, and I think I gave this book like a 2.5 star. The next disappointment is Ruthless Vows. I was actually so sad about this because I really enjoyed Divine Rivals. I loved our characters, I loved their story, I loved the world and the whole like vibe of it all. But going into Ruthless Vows, I just feel like the point of the first book was like building their relationship and like getting to know those characters, and it was more like romance focused, and the fantasy part and like the politics part was just like an afterthought that never really got super explained or like touched on. And then in Ruthless Vows, it completely switched to where it was like only politics, only fantasy stuff, and we just like completely lost like a lot of that connection in the romance because Iris and Roman are apart for the majority of this book. So I feel like we just like in the first book we got so connected to these characters and invested in their story. And then in Ruthless Vows, we just didn't get like nearly any of that. And that was just, again, that's just my opinion. I know that some people like really like the way that it kind of switched up, but it just didn't work, unfortunately, for me. And then my last biggest disappointment was actually a recent read, and that was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This book was my first Brandon Sanderson book, which I have heard is not the best to start with because I've just heard that like this is kind of different from like what he normally writes. So I would be interested to pick up like another Brandon Sanderson book and see how I like that. But for this one, I just feel like it was so slow until like the last chunk, and I feel like we just focused so much on like flight training. Like we just spent too much time in a place that like I didn't really care about, and it didn't really like add a whole lot to the plot. I felt like the plot was just her in flight school when there was a lot more that I feel like could have been expanded on that would have been more interesting for me personally. I didn't really get super connected to these characters either. Mbot was literally the only reason that I continued this book because I love him so much and like that character so much. Towards the end of the book I started getting more invested, but I think I just went into it with too high of expectations, and I went into it thinking that it was going to be like a fast-paced, really fun book, and it just wasn't that. I think if I would have gone into it with no expectations or with lower expectations, I probably would have enjoyed it more, but I don't know. That was just a really weird blip. Okay, the next question is what my biggest surprise of this year so far was. And I think I would have to say that is The Unmaking of June Farrow and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This one I honestly wasn't even going to pick up when I did, but it was my in-person book club pick for, I think it was like February or March. So I really wanted to read it before we met to discuss it. And so I picked it up and I ended up finishing it in like a day or two. I had no expectations for this book. I mean, I thought it was going to be like a fun little like magical realism read. If I were to have predicted like what I would rate it, I would probably say like a 3.5, 3.75. I did not expect this book to affect me and hit me the way that it did. I didn't expect to binge this book. I didn't expect to fall in love with this book. So this was like the most pleasant surprise. And then Emily Wilde, I don't know. I'm usually not one for cozy fantasy because I feel like I just get bored really easily. But going into this book, I just like immediately fell in love with this world and the characters and the banter, and this was another one where going into it I probably would have predicted to rate it like a 3.5, 3.75, and I ended up rating it like a 4.5. So this was another just really pleasant surprise. I feel like these aren't as much questions as they are just like bullet points, because the next one is a new favorite author. I guess a question would be, what is a new favorite author that I have found this year so far? And for this one, I feel like I haven't read enough like multiple books from one specific author to say that they're my favorite author, because I feel like if someone's going to be my favorite author, like I have to have multiple books that I've read and loved from that author. And the only author that I feel like I've read multiple books from this year is Heather Fawcett. So I guess I would have to say her, but I am planning on picking up a few more Adrienne Young books this year, so it could be Adrienne Young as well. Oh, next question. What was a book that made me cry? I usually do not cry in books, and that is because I don't like to read books that evoke that strong of emotions out of me. And I also feel like I just don't like, I cry easily in real life, but like in books, I don't know. I feel like it either has to like hit me in a really special way, or like something just has to like if they kill off a character that I'm in love with, or like I don't know, like something just has to happen drastically to make me cry. But in Funny Story, I cried. I didn't like physically like internally I sobbed, but like only a few tears actually came out of my eyeballs. But that was just because I feel like I just connected so much to these characters, and I related so much to these characters, and especially like some things that Miles and Daphne both were going through. It like hit home. And so I was crying in this book. I just feel like there was a lot of things and a lot of conversations in this book that really just made me emotional. Ooh, next, a favorite book to movie or TV adaptation. For this one, Dark Matter. I read that book back in December for a 24-hour reading vlog, and I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it. I give it, I think, a 4-star, and they just recently released a new TV show about it, because it is one of those TV shows that's like currently being released. So I think it's like every Wednesday they come out with a new episode. But I had a few that I needed to catch up on. So I binged the first like 5 or 6 that were available, and I have never been so impressed with the way that they adapt a book to TV. Like watching this show, it was literally like nearly exactly how I had pictured it in my head, and they just followed the book so well. To a certain extent, because there are some things I think that they added in, but it was added in like for the better. Like I'm happy about what they added in. But yeah, I was just very, very impressed with the way that they portrayed that on TV. Okay, next one is the most beautiful book I bought or read this year. I feel like I have talked about these books literally so much already, but I would have to say that's these two. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure these are both the UK editions. I truly and fully believe that the UK has so much prettier covers than the US for the most part. This one I just think is absolutely beautiful, and it's so like my vibe. Like the mushrooms, the flowers, the map, it's all very like natural, I guess, and I love it so much. And then this one, I don't know if it's just like the color scheme or the stars, but it literally looks so magical. And I love the blue a lot more, I think, than the brownish one that is the original cover, I think, or like the US, I guess, edition. I mean, I think they're both absolutely beautiful. And like this one is definitely more, like, because I display this book, and I think that displaying this cover in like the spring and summer is really fun because it's like blue and green. And then the other one I feel like is a really, really good like fall and winter maybe display because it has like that more fall color scheme. But those are just the two most beautiful books I think that I own that are even on my shelves. Okay, and the last question that I'm doing is books I have to read by the end of this year. So I have not like a super extensive list, but I do have a few that I feel like I really need to read by the end of the year. The first one being The Grandest Game. That is one I just recently talked about. It's the new Jennifer Lynn Barnes series. But the next one is Abby Jimenez's Part of Your World. I have not read a single book from her yet, but I really want to because I have heard nothing but good things about them. And I really want to get into like her series. I think that Part of Your World is like the first book in that series. So they're not series that you have to read like chronologically in order, but they do, I think, have like characters, like they are somewhat intertwined, so people just say that like it's better to read them in order. The next one I really want to read is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This one is another one that has just like blown up. I don't even know when exactly it came out. I think it came out last year, but it's been blowing up. It was a very, very popular book for the last year. And me being a new magical realism fan, I just think that like having the magical realism and the romance kind of mix is going to be really fun for me. Next, I have Dreadful. I think I am saving this one for fall, but I have heard that this one is like Despicable Me meets Princess Bride. And I was like, that is like such a weird mix, but I'm like all for it. Like that sounds like something that I would be so into. Anything that's like a mixture between like a specific genre and like humor, I'm just all for. And this one's like fantasy, like a humorous fantasy. The next one will be no surprise, but I really want to finish the ACOTAR series, so I have to read A Court of Wings and Ruin, Frost and Starlight, and Silver Flames. But I'm probably honestly only gonna read A Court of Wings and Ruin because I've heard that Silver Flames is very smutful, and I just don't, I'm trying to like avoid a lot of smut at the moment, so I'll probably just put A Court of Wings and Ruin like on my goal for 2024, and then if I really feel like continuing the series, I will, but I don't know. The next one is one that I also already talked about, and that is The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. And like I said before, it's just a very like magical book that I feel like I would be really into, so that is definitely on a must read for the rest of 2024. Next one is Vengeance of the Pirate Queen. This is the third book in the Daughter of the Pirate King series. This is like a Lady Jack Sparrow story series, and so this last book follows her, I always forget what it's called. I think it's called like a first mate or like the first something, but it's our lady captain's like right hand person, and it follows her. So the last one that I have is The Lost Bookshop. This one I believe is like a kind of fiction magical realism. Maybe. I'm pretty sure it follows like a group of people, and this like magical bookshop shows up, and I don't really know what happens after that, but it sounds really fun. I love those books that are like fun and magical, but they're also kind of like thought-provoking, you know, like it just makes you really like think and feel. I don't like to be sad in books, but I do like to like think and feel in books. But yeah, that's all of my stuff for this little mid-year book tag. I honestly really love doing these videos because it's fun to like do just like a yearly check-in and especially like mid-year check-in to see like how far you've come and like what you have left. Please let me know below what you guys have on your list of like must-reads for the rest of 2024. Also, feel free to answer literally any of these questions in the comments because I would love to see like where you guys are at in your year and like your disappointments, your favorite books, all that fun stuff. But for now, I love you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your month, rest of 2024, and I will see you guys in my next video. Mwah.